The Prime Minister's defending her handling of the Qantas dispute. The airline's almost back to normal capacity after the entire fleet was grounded on Saturday night. But politicians on both sides are now calling for changes to the Fair Work Act, as Hayden Cooper reports from Canberra.
The Qantas decision was the wrong decision. It was the wrong decision by members of the travelling public. It was the wrong decision by the Australian economy.
What we've seen over the weekend is a total failure of leadership from the Prime Minister.
The travellers are moving on, the planes are up and flying again. But in the nation's parliament, the dramatic events of the weekend are fueling a vicious fight.
How can she expect the Australian people to have any faith whatsoever in this divided and directionless government?
There he is with his chants of negativity. Comes in here every day and he's clipped together his little negative slogans, and he's done that with a sense of desperation today because he's in cover-up mode.
The government is extremely confident that its response to the Qantas grounding has been both popular and successful. It was a twofold strategy: strongly criticise Qantas for the move and send the case to Fair Work Australia for a ruling.
For this, the industrial action to be resolved from Saturday, when Qantas started it, by Monday, with planes getting back in the sky, shows that Fair Work Australia did the right thing following the government's application to it.
But it didn't avoid almost 2 days of trouble for thousands of travellers around the world. It's this fact that Tony Abbott is trading on, should the Prime Minister have directly intervened early on Saturday afternoon, when first told of the looming action.
It is utterly inconceivable that any previous Prime Minister, hearing the news that she got at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, would have just sat passive while this crisis developed. Bob Hawke would have got on the phone, John Howard would have got on the phone, Paul Keating would have got on the phone, Kevin Rudd was never off the phone. And what did Julia Gillard do? She did nothing.
The Prime Minister's response was to ask what Tony Abbott did and whether he knew of Qantas's plans before the government. His call for an intervention on Friday morning has since sparked some suspicion.
This is getting worse and worse, and I think it is time for the Prime Minister to get active.
When did the Leader of the Opposition know? When did he know that tens of thousands of passengers were going to be stranded? When did he know that workers were going to be locked out?
The first I heard about it was at about 4:45 on Saturday afternoon. If I had prior notice of what Qantas was intending, I would hardly have booked myself and my family on Qantas the following day, Mr Speaker. So I suggest to the Prime Minister and the Minister for Transport they should stop fantasising about me and start apologising for the massive damage they've inflicted on the Australian public.
Beyond the immediate political argument, there will be long-term ramifications. Already backbenchers on both sides of the dispatch box hope that this episode leads to changes to the Fair Work Act.
I'm really concerned that the weekend's events create, in effect, a precedent where, for example, companies in similar situations where they think that they can have a disruptive impact on the economy undertake the kind of actions, extreme actions, that Qantas carried out on the weekend, and that is a serious concern that does need to be addressed down the track.
This is just unacceptable if you are going to shut down an airline without even a word to the federal government, without a word to your shareholders, and without a word to your employees. Then that is reprehensible behaviour.
As a former union leader, Senator Doug Cameron takes a harder line than most. He too wants to toughen the law in this area, and it's a point he'll be arguing in caucus.
Well, obviously we'll need to look at the Act in terms of how we can avoid this in future. This is an issue that I'm sure will be debated within government. And I'll have a point of view that we cannot allow a company like Qantas to ever do this to the Australian public again.
On this issue, coalition MPs are more reluctant to speak their minds. A group of Liberals back the business view that legislation is to blame for the dispute, but several declined the offer of an interview. Their leader is determined to make this a question about government competence and nothing else. Perhaps it's because this is one topic with which the Prime Minister is most comfortable.
Now, I am aware, Mr Speaker, that during the course of the last few days there has been criticism of the Fair Work Act and commentary about its provisions. And to those who raise that criticism, I say if people want to have a debate on workplace relations in this parliament, bring it on. Bring it on.
Well, we invited the Qantas CEO, Alan Joyce, to appear on the program tonight, but he was unavailable. Qantas did respond in writing to some questions. We wanted to know, does Qantas agree with Mr Albanese that neither Mr Joyce nor any Qantas representative ever aired the possibility of a lockout of staff before Saturday, October the 29th? The answer, yes. Does Mr Joyce stand by his statement to Fran Kelly on Radio National on Monday, October the 31st, that he raised the possibility of a grounding of the fleet with the federal government on multiple occasions? Again, the answer, yes. And Alan Joyce also said in a statement that over the past few months we made it very clear that we could ground the entire airline and that this was a real possibility and it could happen at very short notice with immediate effect.